Burnout isn't just about feeling tired, it's when the hobby you love starts to feel like a chore. The excitement of finding a new game or adding something special to your collection fades away, replaced by a sense of obligation or even frustration. Instead of joy, you feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff you've accumulated, or worse, you're collecting out of habit rather than passion. And honestly, I've been there myself. Just a few months ago, I hit a wall with massive collecting burnout. The thrill I used to feel hunting down games or adding a gem to my shelves was gone, replaced by a nagging exhaustion. In a previous video, I talked about how collecting can become an addiction, but today I want to shift gears and focus on the other side of that coin, how to move past burnout and how to find your love for the hobby of game collecting again. So if you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just plain uninspired, stick around, because today we're diving into practical ways to overcome game collecting burnout and to rediscover the joy that brought us all to the incredible hobby in the first place. First thing first, stop doing the same thing expecting different results. If you're feeling burnt out, the worst thing you can do is to keep forcing yourself to collect things like you always have. For me, a typical week went something like this. Wake up, scroll through CEX or eBay to update my wish list, hit the car boots on the weekend, trade in the stuff into CEX and buy games from that wish list. Rinse and repeat. It started to feel like I was living in the Matrix, where every day and week blurred into one endless cycle, and honestly, it wasn't healthy. So when the car boot season ended in October last year, I decided it was time to break the cycle. I stopped the routine cold turkey. I didn't step into a CEX or even look at my wish list until the start of the new year. I also turned off all CEX stock alerts, eBay notifications and wish lists. If a game is something I'm generally excited to play, I'll trust it come to mind naturally at some point in time in the future. And if it doesn't, then it probably wasn't something I truly cared about in the first place. And let's talk about social media. Constantly scrolling through posts of other people's massive collections or latest pickups can make you feel like you're falling behind in the hobby, even though this isn't a competition. Social media shows you a capsule, the highlights, not the whole story. To reset, I took a break from Instagram for a whole month. I still posted to YouTube, but stepping back from Instagram was exactly what I needed. Since coming back to the platform, I feel much more energized and I've been posting far more frequently. If you want to see more of my collection and behind the scenes at Collector's Quest, the link to my Instagram is down in the description. Feel free to drop me a follow. By stepping away from the constant cycle of collecting and comparison, you give yourself space to breathe, reflect, and to rediscover what you actually love about game collecting. The next step is to take it back to basics. Ask yourself, why did you start collecting games in the first place? Was it the love of video games, the community, or maybe just the thrill of the hunt? For me, it was about building the dream collection I could only imagine as a kid. I love playing video games, and having a curated library at my fingertips is just such an amazing feeling. So I went back to that. In the final months of 2024, I played more games than ever before, and it was just like being a kid again. Hours just flew by. That innocent joy sitting on the sofa with a nice beverage, a snack, and a blanket wrapped around you, it all came flooding back. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Just play the games that you have spent countless hours and money hunting for. But this childlike experience of just playing games really helped me reconnect with the reason I started collecting video games in the first place. Instead of constantly thinking about what's next on the horizon, focus on what you already have. Seriously, grab something off your shelf that's been sitting there for years and just play it. No pressure, no guilt, just the pure joy of gaming. If that game doesn't stick, then move on to the next one. Like I mentioned in my previous video on how to conquer your gaming backlog, not every game needs to be seen through to the credits to get fulfillment from the game, and don't underestimate the power of revisiting old favourites. Spending time with a game you love can reignite that spark, reminding you why you fell in love with gaming and collecting in the first place. For me, I continue my pilgrimage for the Legend of Heroes Trail series by diving into Trails of Cold Steel. This series is like comfort food for me. Its turn-based combat is second nature, the game mechanics feel like home, and reconnecting with familiar characters while meeting new ones in an ongoing story is such a joy. It's a reminder of why I started this journey in the first place. We all have that one game or even an entire series that just feels right. Maybe it's a timeless classic like The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time that takes you back to exploring Hyrule for the first time, or perhaps it's a cozy farming sim like Stardew Valley where you can lose yourself in the peaceful rhythm of tending crops and building a virtual life. Whatever your favourite game series is, lean into it. Let it remind you of the excitement you felt when gaming was just about having fun. And if you're struggling to pinpoint that one game, think about a genre or even the era you love, be it retro platformers, immersive RPGs, or arcade classics. Revisiting those touchstones can help rekindle your passion and remind you that this hobby is about joy, not pressure. But maybe your burnout isn't just about game collecting, it's also affecting how you interact with your collection. You find yourself staring in front of your shelves, surrounded by amazing games, yet feeling completely uninspired. Choice paralysis hits hard, and no game seems to grab your attention. If that's you, then it might be time to take a different approach to reignite your passion for the game collecting hobby. One thing that sparked excitement for me was stepping out of my comfort zone and exploring different genres. JRPGs make up about 90% of my collection because they've always been my go-to genre, but recently I started dipping my toes into survival horror games. Last year I played my first ever survival horror title, Silent Hill 2 the remake, and it completely blew me away. It was my game of the year last year. Honestly, I might have set the bar a bit too high for myself because that game is going to be tough to top in the survival horror genre, but it opened up a whole new world of gaming for me. If diving into a new genre isn't your thing, consider giving your collecting a theme or a purpose. You could focus on specific consoles or target games from a specific developer. Themes bring a sense of structure to your collecting, and that sense of purpose can reignite your excitement. For me, I've been toying with the idea of starting a steelbook collection. A lot of channels like Kale have a pretty cool steelbook collection and it looks pretty interesting on the shelf. Next time I go into CEX, I'll be sure to keep my eyes open to see if I can pick up any steelbooks for the same price as the normal version of the game. Another thing that reignited my passion for game collecting was simply rearranging my game shelves and making a few small changes to my games room. I moved my chair forward to make it easier to access the shelves behind it. I also purchased a cover for my burnt orange chair for something new. I felt like it was time for a change and it really freshened up the whole space. On top of that, I moved some of my games around, which not only gave the room a fresh look but also inspired me to set new goals, like filling up some of the now empty shelves. While small, refreshing your space can have a surprisingly big impact on your mindset, giving you a fresh perspective, sparking new ideas, or even reigniting your enthusiasm for your collection. The final big change I'm planning to make is the way I hunt for games. Once the car boot season starts in the beginning of March, I'm going to switch things up and take a different approach this year. One big change will be making my collection more self-sustaining, similar to the approach of Gentlemen of Games uses. Rather than trading everything directly into CEX, I'll focus on selling some items on eBay to recoup the money I spent at the car boot. This buy and sell method will add a new layer of excitement to game hunting while keeping it fresh and engaging. Plus, it allows me to grow my collection without constantly dipping into my personal finances, making the hobby more sustainable in the long term. In the previous video about conquering your backlog, I talked about building a curated collection by focusing on games that truly spark joy. To do this, I regularly reorganize my collection and trade in titles that no longer excite me. However, it's essential to approach this carefully during burnout. It's all too easy to overpurge your collection and end up with seller's remorse. For instance, I recently traded in games from genres I realised just aren't for me, like arcade racers, side-scrollers and roguelikes. Titles like Hades and Blasphemous on the Nintendo Switch were games I tried to enjoy, but they just didn't click for me, so I decided it was time to let them go and move them on from my collection. To evaluate whether a game sparks joy, try walking into your games room and leaving sentiment at the door. Imagine you're in a retro game shop or browsing eBay. Ask yourself this question: would you willingly spend your money on this game today? If the answer is no, set it aside. Go through all your shelves and gather a stack of potential trades. Then take those games out of your collection and put them in a bag for a few weeks. Later, try to recall the titles that you set aside. More often than not, you'll find you've forgotten about most of them, which is a strong sign you won't regret parting with them. Recently, I followed this process and I ended up with a tidy £330 CEX voucher. I've still got more things to trade. By the time I'm done, I'll likely have over £500 worth of credit, which is fantastic. It's exciting to know that the games I no longer want can help me reinvest in ones I truly care about. Selling or trading can be incredibly freeing. It declutters your shelves, makes your collection less overwhelming, and gives you the mental clarity to focus on what really matters to you. Plus, it creates opportunities to reinvest in your collection. Whether you sell games online, trade them at local game shops, or use credit from places like CEX, you can channel that value into titles you're generally excited about. You're not just downsizing, you're refining your collection into something that reflects your current interests and reignites your love for the hobby. The final thing that helped me get over burnout was to not allow myself to follow in the footsteps of other collectors. Remember, this is your collection, your hobby, so collect what truly makes you happy. If that means focusing on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5 games, great. If your passion lies with retro classics, then fantastic. There's no universal right way to approach collecting. It's all about what brings you joy. And don't feel pressure to chase the must-haves or the must-plays just because everyone else on the internet is raving about them. I learnt this the hard way with Hades. While it's widely celebrated underrated as one of the best roguelikes, I wasn't drawn to the concept, but I gave into the hype. As I mentioned earlier, it didn't click with me, and I ended up removing it from my collection. That experience taught me a valuable lesson: collect and play for yourself, not for others. Let go of the guilt about not playing every game you own or dropping a game halfway through. Not every title will resonate with you, and that's okay. This hobby isn't about ticking off a checklist or keeping up with others, it's about creating a personal experience. For me, I realised my current joy lies in modern systems like the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5. Since starting this channel, I've sometimes felt an unspoken pressure to prioritise retro games, as if that's what makes someone a real collector. But the truth is, what defines a collector is simply passion, and that looks different for everyone. Focusing on what excites me as a gaming collector right now has been truly freeing, reigniting my enthusiasm for both gaming and collecting. So if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, take a step back, think about what excites you, not what others say you should be excited about. Whether it's modern releases, retro gems, niche indies, or a mix of everything, your collection should reflect you. Collecting isn't about fitting someone else's mold, it's about building something that truly brings you joy. So to wrap it up, if you're feeling burnt out, don't panic. It doesn't mean the end of your collecting journey. It's just a signal it's time to hit pause, reflect on your why, and to make some changes. Whether it's stepping back for a while, reevaluating your collection, or trying something new, these moments of reset can reignite your passion and remind you of why you fell in love with game collecting in the first place. Remember, collecting should never feel like a chore. It's a personal journey, unique to each of us, and it evolves over time. Don't be afraid to adapt, experiment, and to focus on what brings you joy right now, even if that means taking a completely different direction than you expected. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced burnout as a collector, and what helped you overcome it? Share your stories and tips down in the comments below. I'm always inspired by hearing your perspectives, and you might just help someone else in the community who's going through something similar. And as always, good luck on your game hunts and collecting adventures. Take it easy, YouTube, and I'll catch you in the next one.